So we're getting a bit of a pattern here with Orange County over the last 6 matches, I believe. Win, loss, win, loss, win, loss type thing. Oh, hey, there was lightning in the match this past weekend, and I think most of us, at least the Orange County fans, were confused as what the heck's going on with this lightning delay, weather delay. Hey, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about some other stuff. We'll get this thing started. Welcome to the Show of Champions. This is the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. How's it going, Orange County? Welcome to the Orange and Black Soccer Cast, the first and only show dedicated to Orange County Soccer Club, its fans and supporters. I am your host, Ray Samora. I'm here to take you through this journey as we discuss all things Orange County Soccer Club. And guess who's back? Back again. Brad is back. Tell a friend. Brad, welcome back to our show after a few weeks away, enjoying some Caribbean or Caribbean, however you like to say it. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing quite all right. I mean, what a absolute anti-banger of a match I get to come back and talk about because whoo-wee, is there a lot to break down recently.
I mean, if only you would have been here last week, you would have had the fun time of actually talking about the Memphis match. But like I mentioned, yeah, and I guess maybe there can be some excitement here because I believe I was going back to the match against Colorado Springs on June 15th. Orange County lost that match. They beat Indy. They lose to Oakland. Oh, no. So, no, it didn't work because they lost also to New Mexico. But New Mexico was a midweek match, so we don't count that. Then they beat Memphis. Then they lose to Tampa. So, for counting Saturday matches, we're in line for a victory here against San Antonio. We'll talk about that match, but we first have to talk about the match this past weekend. Are they officially in Tampa or are they? I don't
I
know.
want to say they're in St. Pete, but
But
I'm not familiar with Florida geographics, even though I literally was there a week and a half ago.
But you were probably in a different part. You weren't in the Tampa part, right? You were
Yeah,
probably Miami side.
I was in the Miami side, or as we like to say to our Tampa fans, the better side.
Okay. You're the one catching the fire for that one. But the Tampa Bay area, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Orange County made the trip out east to face Tampa Bay. We've always talked about this in the past. The trips out east are pretty difficult for teams because you're playing earlier than normal. You've had to deal with a lot of travel. Typically, I would assume, and anyone that is listening live can correct me if I'm wrong. I would assume there isn't an option for direct flights out to Tampa. Oh, by the way, yeah, thanks to the great production team at USL. I guess Morton Carlson has a new look and he's back in the bench for Orange County. At least that's what the graphic showed. As our producer, I think, is pulling that up. Hey, look at Morton right there. He looks great. But Orange County goes out to Tampa, struggles. I mean, it wasn't the worst match and it wasn't the worst loss. And Tampa's a really quality team. So you can't be too upset if you're going to Tampa and not coming home with any points. But still, it's a team in Orange County that was coming off a big win against Memphis. There was some momentum we felt from that win, and it just came crashing down again as Orange County struggled. Brad, you mentioned what a great first match to come back and have to talk about. What were your thoughts on Orange County's performance against Tampa Bay?
I don't think that this Orange County team was lacking in the ability when it comes to the desire, the fight to play in this game. I just think, they came into a game outclassed by one of the better teams in the East that has been historically dominant in the league. Unfortunately, we're still playing the kids and a vet on the bench strategy, although the bench looks a little bit more full than it did a couple of weeks ago when we first coined the term. And we played like it. Ben Norris gets a red card early in the second half off of 2 yellows and just showing, he's a kid playing in a game that unfortunately Tampa Bay is a really good team. we're really missing, in my opinion, here, Kevin Partita. Because obviously Chata's a good player. No one's going to contest that. Miles and Nakim are both good players as well, but Kevin Partita here, I think, would have been a little bit of a fire under the Tampa Bay Rowdies lineup. Definitely causing some trouble. But a couple of questions I do have. Why the double sub at halftime for both Nakim and Miles, bringing on, I believe it was Chavez and Fox. Obviously, Tampa Bay scored a couple of early goals. One of them was definitely a howler on Mr. Colin Shuttler, letting the ball in through his legs. But the other one, just falls on the defense, just giving up an easy goal to Cal Jennings right after the weather delay. So, you know, we can't really talk much about the offense. There still isn't much offense when we're still a little hurt, but clearly outclassed this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a tough one. It's hard to tell from some of the angles and the replays if there was a slight touch on that first goal. We saw the ball, basically Colin Shuttler gets megged on that goal, which you don't really see goal that happen to goalies much, especially a goalie the quality of Colin Shuttler. So you have to think there was probably the slightest of deflections on that ball that knocked it a little bit out of the way of Shuttler. If not, then that's a save that you expect someone like Shuttler to make quite a bit. Yeah, it wasn't Shuttler's greatest performance in this match. We just saw on that most recent replay showing on the screen the misplay on a long ball. It takes a high bounce, and maybe he didn't get much chance to prepare for the conditions of the pitch. But also the defense, again, it's one of those things. The defense is not staying solid in front of Colin Shuttler, and it's really making it difficult for him to be productive and get some consistency. Part of that has to do with, they're playing Ashton Miles, nothing against Ashton Miles, but he's going to, when you play an 18-year-old at center back, you're going to have to live and die with some of the mistakes and some of the greatness that they show. Right. And the mistakes we saw, I believe that second goal, it's purely probably on Ashton Miles and his angle he takes to the ball, and he struggles. I believe it was him. And again, that lack of consistency in the defense just to begin with, of just players rotating in and out and subs and all these other things. The defense hasn't had an opportunity to really figure themselves out and regain that form. I know there's the talk of a possible return soon of Dylan Powers, which will be nice, but obviously we're going to be expecting something out of him, and it's going to take a little bit for him to get back in. And who knows, at this point of the season, he might not even be able to get back into the form that we want to see out of him. I agree with you on the Kevin Partita thing. I think that's a big miss for this team. As much as Kyle Scott has been amazing for this team, he's basically having to do a lot more than what you want to see. And as far as, I'm not trying to say like the minutes, we want to see him play the minutes, but he's just having to run all over the field. He's having to do so much. It's difficult to see the struggles he's having, and part of that has to do with Kevin Partita not being in the lineup. He's just it's showing you the value and how important someone like a Kevin Partita has been to this team. How important they were for the run when Paul Hardyman Morten Karlsson took over last season, and what we're seeing this season, we're seeing just some inconsistency there. I have to say, probably this match, as much as I think he wasn't being helped out, Colin Shuttler has to take a big chunk of why this team didn't win, because I at least that first goal should have been saved. Again, unless there was a deflection that really throws out, but you can't see that, or maybe there was. It's weird. I know I'm like rambling all over the place here. I get it. Like, I believe back in the days, goalies would drop to their knees and sort of make sure there's no path for that ball to get past them if it takes a weird bounce. But I feel like the modern day goalkeeper, they do this whole like one leg kneeling on the ground, the other one up, but it leaves that opening there, which we saw the ball go through from Colin. What are your thoughts? I just rambled a bunch of stuff, Brad. Do you have any disagreements with anything I said?
I don't think this game falls square on Colin Shuttler's shoulders. Obviously, the first goal, Howler, completely on him. I think the second goal, like you had mentioned, definitely falls under the defense kind of giving up an easy counter, and Colin Shuttler's kind of lost in the middle. But he also makes some good saves, like he did just now on the screen in the 72nd, 73rd minute. Uh, you know, Colin Shuttler's the reason we didn't lose this game 4-0. But definitely the reason we lost this game at least 1-0. And unfortunately, a couple chances for Orange County to earn a point back. Cameron Dunbar off the right post, as you see on the screen again. And some returns in having, Dylan Powers back. But clearly the roster is still missing some big name players. We mentioned Kevin Partita. Thomas Among's not in the lineup right now. But this isn't necessarily Tampa Bay's full lineup either. They started a 17-year-old Nathan Worth, who played 60 minutes in the game. They're missing Forrest Lassa, one of their best defenders, and Leo Fernandez, one of their best offensive players. You know, Orange County definitely had its opportunity early on to stay in this game, but an early mistake and then the rain delay, and Tampa Bay really came out fighting a lot in this game. Just led to, I think, a game that we all were going to really pencil in as an Orange County loss.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was anticipating a win. Maybe we could sneak away with a point in this match, obviously with the early goal and then the weather delay and then an early goal after the weather delay. It sort of deflated any potential energy. I will give props, and I believe I was seeing that. I believe producer Andy threw up some comments on the chats. The team at least looked like they were still fighting through till the end. It didn't look like a team that was they got deflated and they were sort of giving up and just sort of running through the motions. They were trying. You mentioned Cameron Dunbar. Unfortunately for him, he just seems to be going wide right on every shot that he takes. He is taking them from some difficult angles this season, so obviously, but maybe if that ball is an inch further to the left that he hit the post on, it goes in, it changes the rest of that game, and maybe we can fight for a point. But being down to on the road in Tampa, where I believe it was pretty hot and humid, I believe when I checked when we were waiting for the weather delay to stop, it was still like in the mid to high 80s in Tampa. And obviously with thunderstorms rolling in and out, there's humidity. I'm sure that's really difficult for the players. Everyone thinks, oh, it's a night game, it's not gonna be that hot. I mean, heck, humid and 86 degrees is difficult to deal with. It's a struggle. It's a struggle with what's been going on. But props to the team for at least not giving up. But you look at the XG chart, I mean, it's mostly green. That sort of tells you, as much as we like to think it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I mean, the fact I know XG is just one stat, but the full pretty much mostly green everywhere. And again, XG chart from courtesy of American Soccer Analysis. Do you agree with what this chart looks like, Brad, or is it sort of misleading?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you mentioned the fact that players were fighting the whole way through. 100% agree with that. This is a game that Orange County easily could have given up start of the second half after the weather delay, and what was probably one of the most humid atmospheres I think they've played in all season, if not for the rest of the season as well. And I see we have a comment that says, "Where's Larry?" I'll make a Larry comment for you to kind of make up for his absence this week. As being a person who spent a whole month in Miami for a week, that's kind of how he says it, right? A whole week and a day.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's humid out there. I've never sweat more in my life doing nothing, and they're running 90 minutes on a pitch. To answer your question about the chart here, I think this really highlights one thing that I said, where Shuttler is the reason they were still in this game, because a lot of those peaks that Tampa Bay didn't score on, the .4s, the .39s, and expected goals, Shuttler is either making saves or we're getting a lucky bounce off the bar. And the two opportunities that they did score on were lesser chances. That, again, Colin Shuttler made a mistake, but at the end of the day, it was like 20 shots to 5. You're never going to win a game when you're the 5 unless your defense really plugged up the holes. And this is a Orange County game where unfortunately the defenses didn't hold up as best. It's been kind of a win some, lose some on the defensive end this year, especially with all the injuries we have.
Yeah, and maybe I was a little overly harsh on Colin Shuttler, and also I do. I will take ownership in forgetting that Dylan Powers made an appearance in this match, and hey, he looks great, but it's going to be in short periods, and I can anticipate probably for the next month and a half that's what we're going to see. I don't anticipate him making a full 90-minute strong power or strong performance over a full 90 minutes for a while, if anything, this season. It might be he might have to be one of those players that's playing limited minutes the rest of the season. And then maybe if we sneak into the playoffs, if he can stay healthy, he can maybe push and play close to or a full 90 minutes at that point. But anytime someone's been off the pitch that long, it's going to take a while for them to come back, no matter how well they look. And that is, I think that's going to be at this point, that's sort of like the story of the season. And I know we still have a ways to go. I know we still have a few more months to go, but the story of the season is like what could have been with all the injuries and the missing players and all the stuff going on. That's just part of this. And I think even when some of these good players come back, it's going to be difficult because of the lack of chemistry that this team has built. And no matter how well they all played together last year, it's still a different season with a different head coach and some different tactics going on. So even if we go back to what we were penciling in as the original starting 11, it's still going to take some time for them to rebuild that chemistry, which is going to be difficult. We've talked about in the past, team can sneak in to the 8 seed, and who knows if they're on a good run and on a little bit of a roll, it could end up in something really, really amazing and really beautiful. To do that. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
To re-emphasize that, team can sneak in the 8th seed. That's where Orange County is right now at 24 points. 4 points above our opponent this upcoming week. 3 points above everyone's favorite little butterflies. Orange County, 8 seeds out of a 12-seeded conference is very generous. You don't have to be a good team to make it to the playoffs, but in order to win in the playoffs, you got to be a good, great team, especially if you are a lower seed. Teams like Oakland, who were 8 seeds that won in the playoffs, it's easier to get in, but you have to see Orange County doing better, especially over the next 2 months if we're A, fighting for a playoff spot, and B, gonna do anything once we get there.
Here's the scary part when you're talking about the position that Orange County's in and who's right behind us. Those are 3 teams that are typically better quality teams in this league. And if it comes down to those 3 teams fighting for the A spot, obviously things can change between now and the end of the season. But that's a very scary proposition if Orange County is battling Phoenix and San Antonio for the 8th seed heading into the playoffs. So the hope is that Orange County can maybe go on a bit of a run sooner rather than later, bump their way up the table a little bit, not have to worry about fighting off a San Antonio or a Phoenix or say a Monterey Bay or whoever else is battling for that spot. To do so, they have to head into this weekend against one of those teams you were just talking about, San Antonio, and try and recover some of their brilliance that they had 2 weekends ago against Memphis. They're going to be facing San Antonio. It's a home match. So when we played Memphis, that was a home match. We played great. Also, we just talked about it, the pattern that's going on here for weekend matches, win, loss, win, loss. We just lost. That means maybe a win happens. And I know people think Ray is dumb for believing in all these weird, patterns and weird numbers and all this weird stuff. But hey, you got to look at something. And that's something that I can look at when I'm just looking at stuff right now. San Antonio, again, one of those teams you do not expect to be out of the playoff picture when you just think of the name San Antonio. Who knows, not even paying attention to what their roster looks like. They tend to be a really consistent team in this league. Does anything scare you about this match against San Antonio, Brad?
I mean, one player and one player alone, that's Mr. Juan Agudelo. Beyond him, Mitchell Tainter is one of the better defensive players, and unfortunately, the San Antonio team's having a lot of the same problems that we are, with the yips and not being able to find the back of the net. Recent form, they won their last game against Phoenix Rising, but before that, they have lost a grand total of 5 matches in a row, and 6 of their last 8. So this is a team that, historically speaking, 2 years ago they won the title, but now this team is floundering, just like Orange County is. You mentioned they're typically at the top of the table as well, with Orange County and a couple of other Western Conference greats. So this is going to be, in my opinion, the best rebound game. It's at home. It's late in July. It's a game that Orange County should be competitive in. And if there was a chance that we would be kicking off our late season run and putting ourselves into a position to win, this would be the perfect game to circle on the calendar in the next couple of months.
Here's something more positive to look at. If you look at, they just beat Phoenix, but like Brad said, they were on a 5-match losing streak prior to that. Their previous win before that was against Memphis. It was only a 1-0 win against Memphis. So, and regardless if it was in Memphis, we did pretty good when we were in Memphis this season. So if you want to
Haven't been yet.
We have been. We
Have
played
we?
in Memphis, Brad.
haven't.
Go check it out. I was in Nashville while the team was in Memphis, and I had been in Memphis the weekend previously. That's the only reason I know that.
My apologies.
Yes.
I'm backwards.
So,
I was looking at San Antonio's schedule.
yeah. So maybe there's another way to look at the positive, right? Is San Antonio struggling? Thus, the reason why they're sitting out of the playoff picture right now is they're struggling worse than Orange County is right now. Obviously, if they don't go on a 5-match losing streak, they're not sitting outside of the top 8. They're probably knocking us out of the top 8 right now, and they're somewhere up there. But Orange County, this is a rare match where Orange County fans can actually look at it as like, hey, Orange County is in a better run of form than San Antonio is over the last 5 matches. And you look at common opponent like Memphis on there. There's something to look at there. I'm still a little scared of this match. Let me just say that I'm scared of a match against San Antonio. I'm talking about all these positives that I'm looking at. I'm like, ooh, this might actually work out in Orange County's favor. I'm just scared of this for some reason. This is just one of those like internal feelings. I have no reason to say why I'm feeling this. I'm just feeling like this is a worrisome match for Orange County. Hoping the healthy players coming in sparks a little bit of something. Being in front of the home crowd is going to be important. So if you're in and around, make sure you make it out to the match and be there and support the team, because I think that'll be very important for Orange County players to hear and build from the energy of the crowd. I believe that is owners night. Correct me if I'm wrong, Producer Andy or Brad. Owners night. So anyone that went into the ownership aspect of this team and invested in Orange County, this is your night to go to the match, receive any of your perks that you're supposed to receive, and show your ownership of this club. So that'll be hopefully bumping up the crowd a little bit there. It's always tough in the middle of the summer because people are taking vacations and doing all these things. But the hope is, and maybe this will ease some of my worry, is we'll have a nice big crowd, supportive crowd, energetic crowd, and it'll help push the Orange County players to just do that little extra. And maybe it can be like it was 2 weekends ago against Memphis, where we're scoring goal after goal after goal with pretty much no answer really from the opposing team. Do you think that's possible, Brad? Or am I hopeful when I'm thinking that? I know I just said I was worried about this match, and now I'm talking myself into being a little bit hopeful. That's me.
I mean, look back to last season when San Antonio came late down the stretch and played a really tough game to Orange County. This is going to be a physical game, just like the games against Oakland and Sacramento are. San Antonio is one of those teams that, they're not a direct rival, but they've always played Orange County very, very tough. And for most teams in the league, they have a fight to fire or fire to fight. And you have every right to be worrisome about this match. I'm not going to say that I'm worried that San Antonio is going to come in and drop 4 or 5 goals on us like other teams in the league could, like Louisville. But San Antonio is they're going to come in and definitely set the tone when it comes to, aggression in the game. And especially with the team of younger players, I know Ben Norris is suspended for this game, but, with players like Bryce Jamison, anything can happen, especially against a team that's going to be aggressive and going to set a physical tone.
Well, let's do it. Let's talk about what we think is going to actually happen in this match. Let's do some score predictions. Before we do that, I don't know if we have the graphics because I know our production software is having some glitches this evening. But Brad can go over. I think he'll potentially have some information he can share with this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Brad look up that information and he can share with us what's going on. In case we don't have graphics, we can just do it verbally.
Yeah. So I'll give Andy a second to get it up if it's not already there. If not, really the only thing that's going to change this week is second place is no longer Andy. It's actually Kayvon out of the County Line Coalition as a whole, and Taylor is just running it away. 5 points above second place and 9 points above Andy in third. That's basically 2 perfect prediction weeks in a row. Taylor could sit out a couple weeks and still have an easy claim to first place.
She could probably sit out the rest of the season and have a good shot at winning this thing.
I wouldn't go that far. She's only 1 match game ahead of Kayvon, but anything can happen. So, shameless plug, keep getting those predictions in, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure you do so we can keep track of that. Brad's doing a great job of trying to do that. And over the last couple of weeks, he's been out, so he's been catching up. So we'll if we don't have graphics shown here, we definitely will send out something in the social so everyone can see how that's going. What's your prediction for this match, Brad? At home against San Antonio, are you looking more towards what we saw at home against Memphis, or are you looking at more what we saw this past weekend against Tampa?
I think this is going to be a very aggressive game, a very, physical game. I'm looking at I'm going to be positive here, positive Pete, and say 1-0, but I'm not confident in any prediction I can make right now.
You know what? I'm going to go this way. I'm hoping that this is going to be like 2 weekends ago, like it was against Memphis, a struggling San Antonio team. I know they just came off a win against Phoenix, but that's another team that's struggling right now. Again, we talked about it. This is actually a team that Orange County can look at and say, hey, we're in a better run of form than our opponents coming into this weekend. So I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to go 3-0. I'm going to go for a shutout. I want to see shutout Shuttler come out this match if he's playing. I'm going to go 3-0 Orange County for this prediction, and I will make sure to get that in. Let's move on. Let's bring on our next guest, or our only guest for the evening, making a second appearance here on the club, and that is is the official title is still interim head coach, I believe. That's Mr. Paul Hardyman. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. How are you?
Doing good. And can I just say apologies for this weekend? I know Saturday didn't go great for Orange County, and I'm sure as a fan or someone from England, Sunday's result wasn't exactly what you were hoping for. Let me just ask you about that Euro final. What did you think of the performance from the England team, and what did you think Spain did to win that match?
Well, first of all, obviously disappointed from the Saturday. We probably didn't play. I just heard you talking there about the Memphis game, and when we played against Memphis, I thought we were very good, and it was great that the performance reflected the result as well. But yeah, so Saturday wasn't the best, and then obviously Sunday we were flying back, so we got to watch the first half on the flight. But yeah, Spain are a very good team, and they were the best team in the tournament. So all credit to them. England probably didn't play as well as they can and should, but just reading all the press stuff back home about Gareth Southgate should be sacked and all this, I think it's really out of order. That people that aren't really involved in soccer are having a lot to say about it, and they're probably not even managers in their own work, so they're not managing people, let alone managing a group of 24 highly trained professionals and keeping them occupied for over a month, stuck in a hotel and keeping the team morale up, and then going out and getting them to the final. So I've got no problems with Gareth Southgate and the England team, how they played. Tournament soccer is all about winning, and you have to judge it. Yeah, we were lucky a couple of times for sure, but late goals. But that's the game's 90 minutes plus these days. So it was disappointing for sure, but 2 Euro finals and 1 semi-final in the World Cup, I think he should be very proud of what he's achieved, Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to deflect from Orange County. I just wanted to, because I know we're going to ask you a lot about the team, but I wanted to go elsewhere just to give you a maybe somewhat easier first question. Let me ask you about.
I'm not worried about any of the questions. I'll give you. I'm a person that is. The lads will tell you, like, I'm black and white. There's no grey areas. I'll tell it how it is. I'll tell the truth. And so, don't be afraid to ask any questions, please. Don't.
Well, let me ask you this, because it's definitely we've talked about in the past. Making the trip back to the East Coast is always a difficult one for a West Coast team. Going to a city like Tampa, I'm sure there's not many, if any, direct flights to Tampa. So you're having then to sort of lay over places or make connecting flights. Brad was just out in Florida last week, so he knows the humidity's crazy. And I was looking at game time temperatures were in the 90s, upper 80s, 90s. Lightning break. You guys have to come off the pitch for 45 some odd minutes. How hard or how difficult is, with all of that stuff going on, how difficult it is your job to set the players up for success? What does all of that do to make your job more difficult?
Yeah, it is, but that's playing in the USL. There's so many different sort of circumstances that you have to come across playing here. One is obviously the travel. When I speak to people back home and I say, we've got a 5-hour flight to Tampa, but we've got a layover of 2 hours in Dallas. They just can't believe it. The most you have is, I think I said this last time, probably 6 or 7 hours on a bus journey, on a road trip back in England. All the flights are within an hour. So, a 5-hour flight is taking you, from London almost over to America. So that's how drastic it is, if you like. But the temperature was hot. And Colin suffered a little bit for sure. Colin Shuttler suffered a little bit with a little bit of lost vision. And that's not making excuses, but he was struggling a little bit. So we were like, obviously went 1-0 down early on, which isn't the best. But the travel's difficult. The temperatures were difficult. But as I say, there's all different scenarios, like going to Colorado playing at altitude, going to New Mexico playing at altitude, going to the East Coast where you're having 2 flights minimum for us. Mainly because it's cheaper and there's not many direct flights to a lot of these places from, John Wayne Airport. So it means then hiring a bus to go up to LAX to get the players up there, which is more of an expense. So you have to manage, and cut the cloth to fit, really. So for me, it's all about making sure that we look after the players as best we can, and prepare the best we can. But the lightning break as well is something that you very rarely get in soccer. So that probably didn't come at a good time for us. And then we went out and we didn't get the best of starts straight away afterwards, and we go and concede the second, which is something that we definitely spoke about in the locker room before we went out. To make sure we were concentrated and staying alert. But unfortunately, they got the second goal.
And let me just ask you, because you mentioned Colin on that first goal, do you know if there was a slight deflection on that, or was that more, like you said, just due to the weather and just what was, the atmosphere? Yeah. Was it more just that just made it difficult for him as far as you know?
Yeah, it was one of those where we all know Colin's a very good goalkeeper. And, like a couple of weeks ago, he gets player of the week. But as a goalkeeper, if you make a mistake, it costs. Whereas if you're a centre forward and you miss one, a lot of people forget that. When you're a goalkeeper and you do that, then obviously it sticks in people's minds. So, no one's blaming Colin. We're not in that type of mode. What we are in about is trying to bounce back and get that, that equaliser. And that's what we talked about in the lightning break, was to stay in the game. To keep it 1-0. We always felt that we would get, one or two good chances to equalise, and as long as we could keep it at 1-0, that was our main aim. But the second goal, we've got a little bit exposed. We haven't, again, a couple of people haven't done the jobs that are required, and that means that it's cost us. So I've just been watching it back before I've come on here, but for me, it's about everyone doing their jobs as they did against Memphis, and then we get the result that we do against Memphis. So, as I say, it's pretty simple for me, but it's about making sure, and that's my job, making sure everyone does their jobs.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining. I'm going to ask one question about this past week's game because I did bring it up during our analysis of it, and I found it something that I've never seen before on a lot of levels is during halftime, it appears you changed both center mids or center backs, Knockham and Miles for Fox and Chavez. Can you just walk us through what it would take for a decision like that to be made? Because typically, especially, even when your first couple games coaching this season, center backs are really the rarest positions to see subbed off the pitch.
Yeah, you're spot on, and I wouldn't normally do it. Marcus and Foxy were both limited because of their injuries and returning to play. They were limited to 45 minutes each. For me, it's about getting our best players fit and healthy and getting them as much game time as we can. So in my head, that was always going to be that Marcus would start as the club captain. Foxy would come on for him at half time, so they both got their restricted minutes. I just felt that Ash wasn't at his best on Saturday. Carl Jennings is a very good player, caused him a few problems, and he's a young lad, and you have to manage the young players. That's been my background for a long, long time of dealing with young players and seeing what they can and can't do. And I wasn't prepared to leave Ash out there when he was struggling a little bit with the movement of Carl Jennings. When we've got Jordan Chavez, who has done well, and it was harsh on leaving him out of a winning team. I've said to the players that I don't really like changing a winning team, but also when you've got players like Marcus and Andrew Fox and Dylan Powers coming back, it would be stupid of me not to try and include them and get them on the pitch. So that was the mentality behind it. As I say, Marcus and Foxy were always going to be 45 each, and there's no other way that we can really, get them that game time that they need, other than playing them as we did. So, again on Saturday, they'll probably be restricted to a certain amount of minutes, but also depending on how they react after this weekend. They've been in training, but it's been a reasonably light session today. We'll have a harder session tomorrow, and if they come through that with no problems, then you would think that they can get up to sort of like at least 75, 80 minutes with another week's training inside them. So that was the mentality behind it. So hopefully that explains it for you.
Awesome. Speaking on injuries still, it looks like that injury list is getting slightly shorter week in, week out. I remember earlier this year it was like 10 players on it. And this past weekend it was 5 with Olaski out for the season, the others being Among, Asensio, Kisipli, and Partita. Do we have any idea on the availability of those players coming back in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I could go through it. Charlie's still going to be a long time with his shoulder injury. And Brian's obviously out, as you know, for an even longer time. So I doubt we'll see Brian again this season, which is a real shame. We miss him massively. Seth is probably 2 to 3 weeks where we'll be, hoping that we can get him back onto the playing field. He'll be back training hopefully in 2, but we'll see. Kevin Petita's had surgery now, so he's back on the road to recovery, but that's still going to be a few weeks before he's there. And Thomas Mang was unfortunate. We were hoping he was going to be available for Saturday against Tampa, but again, there was a little problem which has kept him out, and it looks like it might keep him out for another week or two. So, but we just need these players back. I think that we all agree that once we've got all our players fit, we've got a very good USL team, and we can be very competitive. The downside to it is that we've been really, really, as you've already alluded to, struggling with so many injuries. And I've never been at a club where you get it for a week or maybe 2 weeks, but we've had it for 10 weeks. Sometimes you have an illness bug that goes through the club, and you have 7 or 8 players out with that. But never like injuries like we've had, and none of them have been minor. They've all been pretty major. So it's a case of trying to manage the best we can, trying to get those players back, and we're hoping that everyone can come through and be, like you say, that list gone down to 5. I would think it'd still be around 5. Hopefully we don't pick anything else up this week in training. So we're doing our best that we can. The medical staff are doing the best they can, and we just hope that we get a fit and healthy squad sooner rather than later.
All right, I got one more question for you personally. Right now, as we alluded to right before you came on the show, Orange County is technically in a playoff spot. However, on the cusp of it with 24 points in 8th. Obviously we know this team is, going to fight for that playoff spot, but with this game as I think we all agree must circle, what other games and what's the philosophy moving forward for the next 15 games I think left in the season?
Yeah, 15, 6 at home, which 4 of those are pretty long trips. El Paso being the shortest one of those out of the flights, and then we have a road trip to Vegas and a road trip to Monterey Bay. So 6 away games, 9 at home, and we've almost got to make the Great Park a bit of a fortress really, and start picking up wins up at home. The games that we've got away, Tulsa, Birmingham, and Charleston, and El Paso, and then, as I say, Vegas and Monterey Bay. None of those are easy, but there's 2 or 3 that we would definitely like to think that we can get, wins or at least draws from, and then we'd be looking to get as many wins at home. So, starting on Saturday, as you said, just before I came on, the bit for me is that it will be a physical game. We'll have to stand up to San Antonio. We know what to expect. It's not, that they're just going to come and change their style. We know what to expect from a San Antonio team. So, I played for the late, great Alan Ball, and he had a great saying that you have to fight for the right to play. And in the teams that he created, he had people that were scrappers, if you like, were fighters, and got down and did the dirty work first, and then won the battles, and then went out and played. What I mean by that is you match your opponent, and you don't get bullied, you don't get beaten, and then gradually you wear them down, a bit like a boxer does, and then your class shows. So that's what we'll be looking to do on Saturday. We'll be looking to, fight for the right to play, not get bullied, and then go out and do the job that everybody wants us to do, as we did against Memphis.
Well, I mean, let's say with the San Antonio match, like I think we were talking about it earlier, this is one of the few teams coming in that you actually can look at the recent form for the teams, and your team, Orange County, is in a better run of form than San Antonio. So hopefully the players aren't looking at that and they're not thinking this will be an easier match than, say, some of the other matches. But that's at least nice to know that you all are at least playing a little bit better than the other team, and that's a little bit of an advantage for Orange County. Let me ask you one quick question, and then I have some questions from our co-host Dylan that couldn't make it on tonight. We saw Ben Norris pick up 2 yellow cards this past weekend. The first one was a tactical foul. I think no one has any problem. That's what a player has to do when there's that transition, and you want to, you're not going to have numbers. You have to do something to give your team a chance to get back in position. The second one, I believe, was for studs up on a slide tackle. I want to ask you this because you're involved. You've been involved with the youth development, and this is just something personally out of me that I've seen from youth soccer, at least in my experience in Orange County, is a lot of young players aren't learning proper way to slide tackle. I notice a lot of young players just go in with their cleats up, just going to take something out with the cleats. Is that something you notice with young players coming into Orange County? Is it something that has to be coached a little bit on how to properly slide tackle, or do you not see that as much as maybe youth coaches in and around the USC?
Yeah, I think it's where the game's changed so much. If you actually really look at the tackle by Ben on Saturday, Ben actually wins the ball first. It's the momentum of him going and winning the ball and carrying on. And I'm pretty sure that he doesn't really make that much of a contact with the opponent. But the opponent, as they do, jumps up, screams out as though he's broken his leg, and then the referee acts on that. The game has changed, and I don't think it's for the best, in the sense of, it's meant to be a physical game. And I just feel for me that it's one of those where if you go in like Ben did, you're going in to win the ball for sure. And for me, it's a tough one because I do feel for Ben because he's done really well. And as you can just see there, he's won the ball. The players almost like pulled out of the challenge because he knows it's coming. And for me, it's one of those where in my day, you would have got a massive round of applause when I was playing for a tackle like that because it shows commitment. It shows, some people would say bravery. But in today's football, that's a yellow card and we can't get away from it. So it's not a great decision by Ben to go in, if I'm being honest, like that when he is on a yellow card. But again, we have to realise that the lad is 17 years of age. Mm-hmm. He's out there trying to impress. He's out there trying to show that he can deal with playing against men, which is a challenge that we've always put to the boys in the academy, to put them into that, because if they can't play against men, they're not physically ready, then obviously they're not ready for OC first team. So I feel for Ben in some ways, but I also spoke to him about being a bit naive for sure. He had to stand up. And the thing was I was just about to take him off and put Dylan on anyway. I asked him to go out and be as competitive as he could for 60 minutes maximum. And he knew that, so that he wasn't holding back thinking he had to try and get through a whole game. I knew that Dylan could do about 35 minutes, so that was that was in the plan for the game. But of course, young Ben's just made that error, and the thing for me was that if you're looking for positives to come out of it, we play against a very good Tampa team with 10 men. We keep a clean sheet in the second half, and we create two excellent chances for Cam Dunbar, who hits the post, and then Ryan Flood at the end that hits one over, where he probably realises he could have done a little bit better. But, on another day, those two goals go in and people turn around and go, you've had a great result at Tampa. But it just wasn't our day on Saturday, and we've got to go, as I said to the boys, we've got to go and pick ourselves up again, dust ourselves down, and go again for a physical encounter next Saturday. So, the boys are under no illusions what's expected of them. And we'll be working hard at that this week in training for sure.
Yeah, it's the tough thing with the rules and the way it's looked at now is anytime your studs are up, even if you get contact with the ball, even if the ball is what makes the studs go up, I think the refs see the studs going into a player, and I think almost instantly they're going to call it yellow. And that's where I look at it is some of these players are not learning how to try and win the ball without putting their studs anywhere near the ball and trying to maybe. But I guess you go through with a swinging kick, you're still going to get nicked for something. The refs are going to call.
Yeah, exactly.
You win if you lose either way, right?
Yeah, it's as I say, the game has changed dramatically. The bit that really annoys me is in the penalty boxes from corners where players are absolutely, grabbing players and almost cuddling them to stop them getting away from them. And the referee doesn't give a foul yet. If that's done outside the box, it's straight away a free kick.
Oh yeah. Don't talk to me about that. I've talked about that in the show a few times, where if it's a foul outside of the box, it's a foul in the box. I do not like, I don't get how, and trust me, I've gotten like the warnings from refs as a youth coach. Hey, stop talking to me about that. Cause that's one of my questions a lot of time. Hey, you call it out here, but you won't call it there. Give me my penalty.
Yeah. No, you look, I've picked up a few yellow cards this season through exactly the same, it's exactly that. I don't get that players aren't allowed to, or are allowed to get away with things in the box that they can't away outside the box. I mean, prime example is the Harry Kane penalty for England in the Euros. The referee didn't give it initially, and VAR had to pick it up. So, it's a silly thing, but yeah, I think referees and the unions of the referees have got to start doing something. FIFA has definitely got to start doing things like, give them more penalties. I mean, people want to see goals, don't they? So why don't referees give more penalties, when they're justified? But
yeah,
we always get them the other way. I mean, I still feel that Ashton Miles' one when he got sent off was harsh. He's just shoulder barged the player, and you're allowed to use your shoulder to, push players, and he got a red card for that one. So we've had a few things go against us as well this season.
So I've got the indicator that we need to wrap things, but I do want to ask at least one or two of Dylan's questions. So if we can keep the answers as brief as we can, but I still want you to answer them. And one of those questions is, how did you prepare or manage the transition from assistant to interim head coach?
I've got to be honest, it's not that much different. The difference is that you have more meetings with the players individually when you're going to either put them in the team or take them out of the team. But the training, Morton and I used to share most of the time anyway. It was always sort of around 50-50, what I did and he did. So that's changed a little bit because I'm doing more of that now myself. And then I'll do more presentations to the players. Obviously, he used to do that with the recap of the game, the pre-match presentation. I used to do all the set plays. So there's a little bit more work to it, but most of it is very, very similar. You're coaching the players, you're doing the best for the players, you're preparing the players. So, all that sort of sticks. And, I would like to think that Morton and I got on really well in the sense of how we wanted to play. So the game, the actual sort of like things that we're doing aren't that dramatically changing. So the players are on board with that. The one thing I want us to get better for sure is to be a more possession-based team. We need to improve on that. But otherwise, the rest of it is, we want to go out and do our best we can.
And then second question from Dylan, I'm going to change it up just slightly, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being 100% absolutely, 0 being absolutely no, if you had the opportunity or, if you had the chance to take away that interim tag and become a permanent head coach for this team, where would you put yourself in on a scale of, 0 to 10?
Yeah, 10. I want it. There's no... I've come over from England. The first year was a fantastic year, as we all know, 2021. We won the championship. It was brilliant. The second year, my task was to set up the academy. The third year was to keep the academy going full time and to start producing players and to start selling them. And then we did with Kobe and Corradi leaving, Milan going as well. So everything that I've come over for has been a success in my mind. Now I want to have the chance to, going to Tampa this weekend brought all those memories back from 2021. And there was only really Mario Lemus and Dylan Powers that were the only 3 people that were there from that night. So it was quite not emotional, but it was nice to reflect on what happened there in 2021 and think like, can we achieve that? And look, we get in the playoffs and everyone's fit. Who knows what's going to happen? No one thought Phoenix finishing 6th last year, especially with the run we were on. We're going to go and steal and winning all the games away from Phoenix, so anything's possible in the USL Championship playoffs, and we got to get there for sure first, but if we get there, watch out for us.
Sounds like you were listening to some of our conversation before you jumped on, because we were talking about that same thing, just getting there in the 8th seed, and with this roster, you're a dangerous roster. I'm sure the top seeds would be looking at that as a potential opponent you don't want to face. Paul, we're going to let you head out, but before we do, any last message for the fans that are going to be making the trip out to the stadium this weekend?
No, look, I love the atmosphere that we're starting to create. I'd like us to be even louder and get right behind the boys. Seeing Country Road be at the start makes it quite emotional. Like for me personally, you hear it and you're thinking, I come from Portsmouth and they've got their own song, and it just means so much to the people. And also the players as well, they buy into it as well. And, come along, back us. Every player out there on Saturday, whoever I pick, will be out there doing their best for Orange County Soccer Club. And we need a little bit of help at the moment, a little bit of encouragement. So, as the board says, get loud, be loud all the time, get those OC chants going, and let's get, right behind the boys on Saturday, and we'll hopefully perform for you and give you a night to remember.
Awesome. Everyone, this is your interim head coach here for Orange County Soccer Club, Paul Hardyman. Paul Hardyman. Paul, thank you as always for taking some time to speak with us. We appreciate it. Best of luck this weekend against San Antonio, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Yeah, look, anytime, gentlemen, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And as I say, anyone that's listening, make sure you come along on Saturday and back us for sure. Have a good week, and we look forward to seeing you Saturday.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. That's awesome. I mean, getting a chance to speak with someone like Paul, and he's willing to be honest with us, answer the questions we have. And I love him just being straight up. Hey, ask me the questions. I'm going to answer them. I want to be honest with y'all. I want to give you all your answers, which is great. I forgot there was one question I wanted to ask him, but it wasn't so super important, so I skipped it. It was just, I wanted to find out if he ever learned what the reason for the yellow card he got against Oakland was, like almost a month ago, where he looked surprised that he was getting a yellow card. I wanted to ask him if he ever found out what that was for, or if he knows what he did. But maybe we can find that out in a future episode. Let's go ahead and get this thing wrapped up, Brad. And to do so, it's your favorite part of the show. What did we learn in this episode? I'll let you go first, Brad. What did you learn?
Oh man, I should have prepared something for this. I learned that those people who have informed opinions about managerial positions in foreign countries such as England know what they're talking about. So those people who think that Mr. Southgate should go should shut their mouths.
There we go. I learned two things. I learned that I'm not alone in thinking that a penalty outside of the box is just as much a penalty inside the box. Paul confirmed that for us. I also learned, hey, Paul 100% would love to remove the interim title from his title and become the head coach for Orange County Soccer Club. You love to see that from someone that's heading your team, even if it's in an interim basis. So it's nice to hear. Hopefully he can put up the performances, and maybe we can remove that either later this season or between this season and next season. We'll see what happens. Hey, I want to thank everyone for listening, paying attention, commenting while watching this live, or if you're listening in podcast form, thank you for doing that as well. Make sure you share any episodes that you listen to with people. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a star, whatever, a heart, whatever social media app you're on that you're using and following us, whatever type of indicator you can do it. And also make sure you go over to our website, OCSCpodcast.com, to read all of the great content that's being put out by our writing team. We appreciate it. Also want to thank interim head coach Paul Hardyman for taking time to join us today, and obviously Brad and producer Andy for all the work they do on the show. Hey, this has been a fun one. Thank you for listening, for watching. It's the Orange and Black Soccer Cast, and we are out.